Hello YouTube, I'm Jack Clark and this is Yu-Gi-Oh! Britain coming to you with another video. Hello, how are you? Now of course, as you can tell from the title of the video, I'm going to be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! And Cardfight Vanguard in this video. Now before we go any further, I know what they say, of course you go on your YouTube channel, you post a Vanguard video, and of course you get a tirade of hate and dislikes and comments in regards to that, saying, However, I do feel I need to talk about Vanguard in today's video, because it has direct relevance to Yu-Gi-Oh! And we would be fools to ignore it any longer. Now of course, a lot of players love Vanguard, and a lot of players love Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically is the most popular, right? That's pretty much undisputed. It is the widest selling card game on the planet. I know people who play Magic will say, oh, but Magic is more established. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has sold the most of all time, of any card game. However, Cardfight Vanguard, of course, has come out of nowhere. It has become popular quite quickly, and of course has come to English-speaking shores, and it's a good game. I know, I have bought some of the cards myself. I started yesterday, I thought I would give it a go, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's a good game, that's the thing though. A lot of competitors that have gone up against Yu-Gi-Oh! And have failed miserably, and have just kind of faded off into obscurity, haven't been that good, and have justifiably been shot down and have disappeared. However, this is Cardfight Vanguard. Vanguard is a very good game. It's a very good game, simpler game than Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course, which has a load of convoluted rules. Of course, once you know these rules, they're not that convoluted. But of course, they become second nature, but of course, is not as accessible to a newer player base. And of course, at this point, Yu-Gi-Oh! Can't change that. They can't change to make it simpler because all the cards they've already made adhere to the rules they've already made. So, of course, they can't change it too much. But this is a new game. This game, Vanguard, has actually, I think, has learned and has done their kind of, they've done their market research, so to speak, and I will explain. Now, of course, in Vanguard, you have the exact same demographic that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has. However, of course, unlike Yu-Gi-Oh!, Konami has kind of, in their mind, set themselves up, their target audience is young boys. And of course, the television shows and the dubs of these television shows do reflect this. Of course, I'm talking about the TCG and English-speaking audience. The Japanese audience, of course, can have a much higher age bracket than we can. However, Konami have decided that their target audience for Western audiences is quite young. So, of course, people like myself, 20-year-old, going to 21 in December, as much as we are quite a big part of their demographic, and their, of course, the people who buy their product, their actual target audience is their priority, and will always be their priority, so we'll get second best. However, Vanguard, of course, being a game that has an anime backing it as well, so this is one way we can directly compare it to Yu-Gi-Oh!, doesn't have such a thing. Now, of course, in the anime, for those of you unaware, we have the main protagonist, who is a young boy. I don't know his age specifically, but I'm going to say he's around 14, which is the kind of the demographic that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is generally aimed at, as you can tell with Yuma Tsukumo, the current protagonist of the current ongoing Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Now, of course, like I said, we've got the main character of Vanguard, also 14, so they're going for that kind of target audience. However, in addition to our protagonist in Vanguard, we also have a couple of other characters who are much older, and if you were to look at them by anime standards, they would be around young adult age. So we've got a young woman, we've got a young man as well. So we've got Toshiki Kai, I think he's the rival of Vanguard, and he is a young man, much older, and of course appeals to, obviously, younger men as well. So, of course, straight from the get-go, you look at Yu-Gi-Oh! ZL, for example. Yuma, a squeaky-voiced, annoying small boy. But, of course, will appeal to a younger audience. Whilst, of course, we have Vanguard, which, of course, does still have the appeal to a younger audience. However, it's going along the lines of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Of course, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D is much darker, had older protagonists. It's also got your older protagonists in Vanguard, which means, of course, the anime not only can appeal for your younger audience, but an older audience as well. Unlike Yu-Gi-Oh! ZL, which really applies to a younger audience more than an older audience, no less. Of course, I still enjoy the ZL anime, but I'm talking about the dub. If you were to show a dub to a general anime fan, they would kind of write it off. Of course, the sub being very good, and is undeniably much better than the dub because, of course, it has darker themes which aren't edited for the Japanese audience. Of course, with the Japanese demographic that Konami has chosen for Xiao, obviously they can have darker themes, I guess. They can have violence to a certain degree, of course. But of course, the dub version can't have that. It's not appropriate for young boys. So, now let's go with the aesthetics. Let's talk about aesthetics with Vanguard and with Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, of course, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been going... It's been around for a long time. With the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, of course, the aesthetic does change between cards and different people. Now, with Yu-Gi-Oh!, of course, we have many different styles of monsters, of spells and traps, and how they look. And of course, for example, I randomly got this at a tournament yesterday, but of course, this is number 17, Leviathan Dragon. Now, if we look at the layout of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card, like this, of course, they're all colour-coded, which is a very important part of the game mechanic itself. We also have various icons. Of course, we have the attributes, we have the rank or level, of course, and we have the name of the card. Very clear. Nothing really to distract you or to draw your attention away from it. The information is clear. We then have a text box, which is black on white, very easy to understand. Of course, with Yu-Gi-Oh! Changing how it is written on their cards with the problem-solving text, it is clearer and easy to understand. Got all the information is clearly done, and most importantly, the picture takes center position in a very clearly shaped box, right? Now let's compare that to a Vanguard card. For example, this is just a random card that I got yesterday. Now, this is a grade 3 Vanguard card. They are typically the most powerful of Vanguard. So, let's have a look and compare this to what I've said about Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, when it comes to layout, the picture of the card, the monster or the creature or the person, takes complete priority over everything else. And this applies with most other cards. Of course, this does have a text box with all the text, and of course that does cover some of the picture. However, let me find another example of a Vanguard card, because unlike Yu-Gi-Oh!, where the picture is in a very clearly defined area, Vanguard takes up the entire picture, so full art cards basically. So this is one of their cards, and of course the main character takes up the entirety of the card. Now the thing is, with Vanguard, of course, they're taking up all of the card, and they may not be technically as clear, but of course the information can still be, you can still tell exactly what this card does. This has got a very clear icon, so that icon there means it's a heal trigger, which is a type of card in Vanguard. And it's got its name at the bottom, it's got all the information you need is at the bottom, clearly written, and of course, clearly understandable. Not as clear as Yu-Gi-Oh! However, with Vanguard, of course, they have taken the route of making the card look as nice as possible in comparison to Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I know in Yu-Gi-Oh! People are saying, you know what they should do for prize cards? Full art cards. Now, full art cards have been around for a long time in many other card games, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Has not done this yet. I think they should, because of course, when you look at this card, what is the thing you look at? You look at the monster. The monster is it is what makes you imagine. It's what draws your attention to this game. It's why we love this game. The monsters and, of course, the battles that we can place these monsters in. So, of course, making that monster take up the entirety of the card makes more sense. However, this is where aesthetics get a bit mixed up, and one thing about Vanguard that really does bother me. Yesterday, I bought myself a trial deck, which is their equivalent of a structure or a starter deck. And I also bought myself a load of boosters. So I think I bought, 8, maybe 10 boosters? Now, start from here. The starter deck's £15, compared to a regular structure deck, which is over £10 maybe. So significantly more expensive. However, the boosters, £2.25, compared to other boosters that are Yu-Gi-Oh!, which are like £3.50 or something. So the prices do vary and fluctuate. However, cheaper to do Vanguard in the long run because you'll be buying more boosters than you will be starter decks. I digress though. So let's talk about the one thing that bothers me about Vanguard. Now, of course, in Yu-Gi-Oh! We do have those cards that are there to appeal to an older audience. And by that, I mean the actual card art. So, for example, in Yu-Gi-Oh! We have a lot of dragons. Dragons appeal to a lot of the demographic. Dragons are cool. Everyone loves dragons. But you know what everyone else likes? Pretty stuff. So, of course, there are certain demographics in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because there are a lot of different people who like Yu-Gi-Oh! So, of course, there are cards that will appeal to others and not to other people. So, for example, Tour Guide from the Underworld. The artwork of Tour Guide from the Underworld will appeal to an older audience and to people of that disposition, shall I say. This is what bothers me with Vanguard. Of course, like I said, they've done their target research, and they have gone kind of to the point of pandering to their older audience. Of course, like I said, Vanguard can cater to an older audience because they're not bound by certain censorships that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, and that Konami has set up for them because they want to target a younger audience. So they have an older audience that they can also target and pander to. Pander to being the operative word, because this is what they've been doing. So I'm going to show you a couple of Vanguard cards, and I want you to tell me what they all have in common. This is our first one. Fifth, and my personal favourite, 6. Now, of course, one thing that all these cards have in common, of course, they all feature anime girls. Some of them pretty busty as it goes, and of course do appeal to an older audience. And I'm not talking in a, oh, that looks rather cool. I'm thinking kind of, look at this, be alone with this card in their bedroom at night kind of thing. But the thing is, with Vanguard, they pander too much to their audience. Now, with Vanguard, of course, there are a lot of female cards, and there are a lot of male cards. In Yu-Gi-Oh! There are a lot more male cards than there are female cards, of course. Their demographic in Yu-Gi-Oh! Younger boys. So, of course, boys, they don't want to see a girl fighting, they want to see guys fighting because it's cool. And it, of course, appeals to them. Older audience for Vanguard, however, of course, that's not the only thing on their mind. Of course, seeing awesome guys fighting, so like, yeah, he's got a sword, he looks cool. But that's not the only thing on their mind. It's not the only thing they want to see. They may want to see a bit of, of course, this does bother me, because they're pandering a bit too much. It's too obvious. With Yu-Gi-Oh!, if you had that kind of pandering, obviously, it wouldn't be quite the same game. But of course, the amount of pandering maybe to an older audience that we have in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is much more subtle. And this is something that I appreciate. The subtlety that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has in comparison to Vanguard. As much as I love Vanguard, and I do love Yu-Gi-Oh! But of course, this is just my opinion. However, of course, I want to get a discussion going. So for those of you who did watch the entire video, good on you. But of course, I want to get some discussion going. So, of course, talk about Cardfight Vanguard and Yu-Gi-Oh! In the comments down below. Tell me your opinions. Do you like one game? Do you not like the other? Give me your reasons why. But of course, that's pretty much it. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please do leave them in the comments down below, or as a video response. I'm glad to hear them. But of course, I'm Jack Clark. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Britain. More videos out to you soon.